Call the meeting to order. Our first item is our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, could you read our mission statement?
The mission of the Marshall Public School District is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Tiger Spotlight.
We're going to do our oath of office for our newly elected board members at this time. So I'll ask Sarah Brink and Sarah Runchi and Jeff Chapman. I'll come down and join me on the floor and we'll do that.
Good luck.
Yeah. So you guys can embarrass there and face the audience and I'll read it to you. All right. We are going to, yeah, certainly. We want to welcome and acknowledge Sarah Brink being a new board member and then Sarah Runchi and Jeff Chapman being re-elected to the board. We're excited to have you all joining us for this next session of the board. We have the ceremonial oath of office I'll read through. And at the end, there's a section I'll have you repeat after me, and it's also on the screen for you to read when we get to that point. After we've read through this, and there will be a couple of sheets that we'll have you sign. Okay? It is an honor that you were elected or appointed to guide the education of our community's children. As you recite the oath of office, you assume a tremendous responsibility as a director of our school district with the duties empowered by the Minnesota legislature. This power puts you and the other members of our school board in the position of being both morally and legally responsible for the equitable, quality education of every student in the district. In carrying out this responsibility, you will be asked to fulfill the roles of vision, structure, accountability, and advocacy. In providing vision, the board, with extensive participation of the community, envisions the community's educational future and then formulates the goals, defines the outcomes, and sets the course for the public schools. To achieve the vision, the board establishes a structure and creates an environment designed to ensure all students the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework. Because as a board, we must be held accountable to the community, we must ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children. As board members, you serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community schools to advance the vision for our schools. Furthermore, we strive to work together with the board and the superintendent and staff to lead the district toward fulfilling the vision we have created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills and knowledge, citizenship, and personal development. Having signed the acceptance of the oath of office, will you please raise your right hand and publicly affirm your commitment by repeating the oath of office after me? I swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state.
I swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of this state, and that I will discharge faithfully the duties of the office of the school board of Independent School District 413. Discharge faithfully
the duties of the office of school board member of Independent School District number 413
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment.
Sorry, that was confusing. Thank you. I do have a couple of documents for each of you to sign. What I'll do, Sarah, one sheet here, so yours, and Chapman, these are yours. And then we have a notary here, sign on the one as well.
both places, Jeff.
All the signature lines.
Official, yes.
Those things play out better in your head when you read it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Than we do in
It's
real
almost
life.
like, if it's up on the screen. couldn't you
Right,
just
we don't
read
need to
it?
do both, right?
Yeah, I always.
Mhm. No, we're good.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Donna.
Our next action item is the nominations for election of the office of 2023 Board Chair. I'll make the first nomination. I nominate Matt Coleman. Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? And for the third time, is there any other nominations? Hearing none, please vote. Are we doing a roll call or are we doing this one here?
I think we can vote right on here, right? Are they each individually on there?
Yeah, they're each
Yeah,
individual.
so we can vote on there.
Okay.
It's not coming up
I made the nomination, but I needed a second though. Mr. Mosley, you want to?
I'll second the nomination.
Okay, and now we can vote. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone, for your confidence in me. I'll do my best to keep the meetings running smoothly and to support all that we do and have been doing. So, thank you.
Matt. I also want to just say thank you to Jeff for his number of years of service as board chair as well as get change for our school board. But thank you, Jeff, for all your years doing that.
My pleasure.
And it looks like Emily got it switched over to me already.
Switch it over, Matt will take over.
Just like that.
Okay, our next item is the election of vice chair.
I nominate Bill Malso.
I'll second that.
Hold it, I went one too far. There we go. I don't have any motions or seconds on my screen.
I wonder if you have
Just
to
need to log out, log back in.
log out, log back in, Matt.
Try that. Yep. Then it just goes to the clerk.
You should have them.
I got on vice chair, but it doesn't,
Go up there and hit sync there.
that goes to the clerk.
Okay, then we gotta go back one. Why don't we just do a voice?
There we go.
Got it? Okay.
Now I got it. Well, and who seconded it?
I did.
And Jeff. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Are there any other nominations? That's the three, huh?
Yeah.
Any other nominations? If not, I'll call for a vote for Bill Moso to be vice chair. was approved to be vice chair. Congratulations, Bill.
Thank you.
The next item is school board clerk. Sarah Runcha currently holds the office. Are there any nominations for the clerk?
I'll nominate her to be clerk again.
I'll second.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? If not, we'll vote on Sarah Runchi to be the clerk. Sarah is our clerk, continues to be our clerk. Thank you. Next item is for board treasurer. Do you have any nominations for treasurer?
I nominate Sarah Brink.
I'll second that.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? One more time, are there any other nominations? If not, I will call for the vote. Congratulations, Sarah. You're our new treasurer.
Piece of cake, Sarah.
We'll figure it out.
Our next action item is approval of board committees. I know we had written some down.
I think we've got a list of kind of what people, and that's what's up on the screen. So at a previous board meeting, we had just talked a little bit about what you might be interested in, and that's, sorry, Matt, I'm going to take your thunder here a little bit.
No, that's fine.
Shared what people were thinking or what committees people were currently on. So we thought we'd just go through each one individually, Matt.
Yep.
The first one was executive governance negotiations, and the three people currently on had expressed interest in remaining on that one. So I thought we could talk about each one individually. If somebody wants something different, this would be a time to talk about the governance and negotiations committee. Same thing for facilities, planning development. Jeff and Sarah have expressed interest in that. There is a third spot open on that one.
I've been on that one, so I would stay on that one if no one else has an interest in it.
Okay. Performance oversight finance, Matt, Bill, and Sarah Runchi have expressed interest in that. Any thoughts with that one?
I should to remain if.
Or if I misunderstood what you were saying you were interested in when we talked about it, this would be your time to say
Yeah.
so.
I don't know, I would be happy to move off of facilities, Sarah, if that would be something that you would be interested in. It's a great way to get the understanding of the buildings and the site improvements and all that kind of stuff. and kind of-
Sure, yeah, I mean, if I can definitely step in. Yep.
Then for the advisory committees, calendar, Sarah, you'd been on that one previously. I don't know if you're still interested in that. If someone else is interested in calendar committee, that one's a one time a year. We have a formal meeting.
And I'm happy to keep doing it. It is nice to have somebody who has kids in the district because a lot of it is kind of the thoughts from the perspective of the teachers and community members and things like that.
That narrows the number of people that would,
Yep, and I'm happy to
You're
step
right.
in too.
Yeah.
we're
Yep.
happy to do that one. That might be a
It's
good one
once
for
a
you
year.
to
Yep.
come into.
Yep.
The meeting will be soon.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Community
I think
services,
you might have the 22. You have the last year's up, Bill? I think there's another.
this is a
document
different
that's-
version of what's on there.
That's
Okay.
the last year's.
All right.
Sarah Runchi had expressed interest in community services when we talked about it originally, so that's up there. Emergency preparedness and safety are both open right now. Aaron had sat on those. Those committees don't meet a lot. It's not a big time commitment with those, but if anyone's interested in those, we'd like to have a representative from the board that would be invited to those meetings.
Safety is twice a year.
Safety's twice a year, and emergency preparedness, they meet once every other month, but board members attended less frequently than that.
And just for those, that's our crisis.
Crisis team, yep.
I could do that if nobody else. Very interested.
I could take safety.
Okay. Bill Swope, still interested in the Families Project, or if anyone else is interested, it'd be a time to express so. Tech committee, this committee meets fairly infrequently, but when there's a change with tech committee or policy or procedure, that committee will meet and kind of talk things through. It's primarily teachers, a couple parents on that one, and then one board member has been part of that committee in the past.
I can go into that one.
Pretty good. Pride and the Tiger, I left it on here last year. Sarah had been on that committee. She had a daughter in there that didn't work just to maintain on that as we were going through scholarship stuff at the end of the year. So that has been open. I brought it back up. Pride and the Tiger just asked if anyone wanted it this year. That one we can do either way if we want to keep it open or if someone's interested in joining that board. They meet once a month, and this would be an ex officio member of that board to sit on there and be part of the discussions.
You're generally at those
I attend
meetings?
all of those meetings,
Yeah.
or almost all those meetings as well, yes.
We have representation there through you.
Yep. You guys are okay with that? I'm good with that, or if someone wants to do it, that's fine.
That's
too.
fine.
High School League has been the same way. MSBA suggests a board member that would be watch over MSBA things, or the High School League items that come up. It's up there if someone has an interest. Otherwise, Mitch does do that and will report out High School League updates to the group.
I think it makes more sense to have Mitch, only because that is directly dealing with that versus, it's kind of like, I feel like we're one step
Yep.
away.
Yep. I agree. I just thought we'd bring it up.
I've had that one in the past, and I think there have been instances where they do want a board member signature or a vote. It's not very frequent, but I know I had that in the past, but yeah, I agree. Mitch is attuned
But
to that.
I agree with Sarah. We've got Mitch as a
Yeah,
full-time
yeah.
employee who goes to those meetings.
Right.
Yeah. And if something comes up, we need board member 4, we'll reach out to you guys.
Or
next.
whatever.
Okay. CTE is a new one. I'd emailed board about this ahead of time, just an FYI. A new committee we're doing around all the CTE pieces taking place with the CTE Center and the additional programming we're doing. We thought it'd be good to have. We're creating an advisory committee that will be some school reps, some business reps. I'd like to have a board member that sits on that. I emailed that out in your board packet ahead of time. Matt and Sarah had both expressed interest, and Sarah said she'd be willing to take community services. Matt expressed interest here. If anyone feels differently on that, we can talk about that one too, but I think that'll be a nice committee to sit on as well.
Mhm.
Go back to you then, Matt. Vote on that.
Any more discussion on that? I'll make a motion that we approve the committees that we discussed.
I second it.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. And they are approved. Our next item is approval to set the Board of Directors compensation. Our compensation for this year is $50 a month, $75 for the chair, and $50 per diem. We can choose to change it, leave the same, whatever you guys want to do, so.
I recommend that we remain the same.
I'll second.
That's a motion.
Motion, that's a motion, yes.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. Gotta click the button. And that is approved. Our next item, approval to set board meeting work sessions for strategic planning. You can open up the list of our meetings for next, it'd be for next school year, right? Is that what we're approving? Right, starting in July. It shows where our work sessions are.
We're scheduled through July already, aren't we?
Yes.
We are. This is just item we're supposed to review at this board meeting, I think.
I'll make a motion, we approve these dates.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. And they are approved. Next item is approval of pedestrian facilities, utility easement, and sanitary sewer easement with the city of Marshall.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
What is that?
So the first one for the sanitary sewer is for Southview, granting the city access to those. And then the pedestrian one is for the sidewalk to grant public access to that along Southview.
Thanks, Leon. Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. And that is approved. Our next action item is approval of the 23-24 budget parameters.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We went over this, I believe, during our last workshop with the full board. It's just, we need board approval. So we can then start working on our FY '24 budget.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote.
I'd like to thank Dion for all of his work with our budget work, keeping us abreast in a timely fashion. Thank you, Dion.
Good crew.
That is approved. Our next action item is discussion and approval of the 22-23 revised budget. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
So I'll just, Emily will open the first attachment. Oh,
I went too far? I'm back to budget parameters.
Budget parameters?
First one.
Yep, that's it. Scroll down.
Otherwise, we can have each board member open it up too.
Right here. Oh, nope, hang on.
One more?
Yep.
We're not on budget parameters? Oh, you're on budget parameters.
We had true,
One more back?
one more folder.
It'd be the comparison one, Emily. There you go, perfect. So just wanted to go through a few things with the revised budget, compared to the preliminary budget that was done back in June. Actually, we work on it in May, so quite a few changes happen, by the time we do the revised budget. Our salaries, the budget decreased, this expense decreased about 130,000. That's mainly due to some shifting that we did this fall and some new hire savings that we had. Benefits went up about 84,000 in expenditures. We had some increase in participation for health benefits, and then our workman's comp premium increased about $54,000 for this year. Side note on that, our workman's comp over the last, they look at a 3-year. The last couple of years have looked really good, so we should hopefully see a decrease then next year. Purchase services increased about $177,000 compared to the preliminary budget. Our property insurance increased about $40,000. And then we've had discussion about some of our other groups that we have as purchase services, such as Avera in Greater Minnesota, which some of those increased. Not just those two increased 91,000, but just pointed those two out, along with their other purchased services increased about 91,000. And then we talked to the board about doing our compensation study, which will be around 45,000. We included that in the budget for this year, hopefully having that done by June of 2023. Supplies increased about $177,000. There's a couple of things in here. One, $38,000 of that is special ed supplies that we actually have funding for through the American ARP. It's part of the COVID funds. So that is offset by some of the revenue that you'll see is increased. We have $44,000 in custodial supplies. That again There was another COVID fund that was extended that we can purchase some of our air filters and our ionization bulbs with. So that increased about 44,000, but it's offset by revenue. And then we added about $75,000 in expenditures for the CTI setup. That would be for supplies, equipment, furniture that's not included in the construction. Expenditures went up about 581,000. 65,000 of that is for our special education van. We need to, in the next couple of years, we're going to need to buy a new van. We can only use the van for 12 years, and ours will be up in 2025. And we actually have some COVID funds that have to be used by June, and we're able to use those funds to buy the new van. So we're going to buy it early, and we're going to actually keep the special ed van that we have now. So we'll have 2 on hand, which will work great for our students. And then we added part of the construction bids, the process, we get the bond prior to the bids, and the bids came in higher, about $475,000 for the CTI Center. So we budgeted that into the capital expenditure under general fund. Revenue, I'm just going to touch on a few things. Our third-party reimbursement, we increased the revenue. That is an estimate, about $60,000 over preliminary. That is off of what ended up with our FY22 increase. In talking to Nancy Grams, our special ed, who works on the special ed reimbursements, those have increased because we have more capabilities of what we submit, and then also with the end of COVID or with after COVID, some of those increased. Miscellaneous revenue looks like an $88,000 increase. That is actually part of us redoing some of how we do our entries. Prior to that, prior to this year, booster reimbursements were put to expenditures to offset the expenditure, and it really should go to revenue, and we count the expenditure. So that looks like an increase, but it's really just offsetting what we decreased the expenditures from. You'll see our general ed increase. The general ed increase and the area learning increase both combined would be due to our increased enrollment for this year. Our preliminary budget, I believe we used a level from the previous year, and we've seen an increase. We have used somewhat of a conservative on that increase because it's on the adjusted pupil enrollment. And so we're projecting that we should have an extra, really around $310,000 in general ed, but we increased our ALC because to offset the expenditures for that. And then our special ed state aid, as we discussed during the audit, that increased last year. I redid what our revenue projection module would be for special ed, and increased that $258,000, which should be closer to hopefully what we're actually going to receive. I do feel like that's probably going to be even higher, but wanted to be conservative on that. And if you can scroll down, Emily, just a little more. Yep, perfect. Our levy basically remained the same. Our title funds, I just put that on the side. Revenue will offset expenditures. So our title funds, we don't use 100% of our title funds because we always want to carry over percentage in case title goes down. So whatever we spend in title is offset by the revenue. Then I put the section down for the federal COVID funds. You can see that preliminarily we were going to use $2 million. That increased a little bit to $2.2 million. Some of that had to do with the special education ARP funds that we're going to use for the van, which increased that. Again, anything that we spend in expenditures offset by this revenue. But do just want to point out, as we've talked about when we did the operating referendum, we're using about $2.2 million this year. We'll have probably about $1.6 million next year to use. and that expires 6/30 of 2024. Our compensatory is going up, which will offset that a little bit, but it's just kind of a realization that we're using $2.2 million worth of COVID funds as part of this. So the bottom line actually turned out, I think, very well compared to our preliminary. We were projected to have about a $300,000 deficit spend for in the preliminary, and that decreased even with some of the increases of the expenditures to about a $98,000 deficit. So if we hold true to that, I consider that on a $40 million, $34 million budget as pretty even budgeted. Any questions on the general fund at all? Okay, I'll just hit just a few highlights on the other funds. Transportation fund basically was about the same as the preliminary, not much moved there. Our capital funds, the LTFM actually shows a decrease of about $245,000. There are some other bonds that are available that we'll discuss at the meeting next Tuesday to help us get ahead of the curve on some of our facilities. So I counted that in as a decrease that still leaves us probably around $1 million in the fund balance for LTFM. Bottom line on our capital, it shows going from a $453,000 deficit to $210,000 deficit. And I did split that off to the side so you could see capital would be decreased about $50,000 in their fund balance, and LTFM, which is our long-term facility maintenance, would decrease about $160,000, which our long-term facility maintenance, like I said, $160,000, we need to spend that down on and get some of our facility upgrades going. So then down to the food service. That one, the expenditures increased about $205,000 over the preliminary. A majority of that, we added $118,000 in equipment. Our fund balance has gotten to the point where we need to spend down, and our equipment has gotten to where we need to seriously look at probably more so the high school and some at Parkside and some at the middle school. I believe most everything at the high school is original, so it's getting to that 18 years. We've had a few fixes. This week the dishwasher went down, so we had 2 days worth of paper trays, but it worked out well. So we want to look at that and make sure that our equipment's working well for our food service. Revenue overall increased about $131,000. So the preliminary, we had an excess close to $6,000. We're now looking at deficit spending our food service fund balance around $88,000. Community services, the biggest move there was our ABE, or Adult Basic Ed. We had a grant that was received in FY22 that is not being received in 2023. That was budgeted in the preliminary. So we took that out. That decreased expenditures by about $444,000. Same at the expense or at the revenue side, taking out that grant, we our expenditures overall decreased about $324,000. So instead of an excess of $22,000, we're looking at probably around an excess of $104,000 for our community service funds.
With that big of a grant lost, what programming is changing? What do we lose? Do you know?
I think it was actually just offset. Just offset. If you remember the audit, we when we were going through the differences, part of that, the expenditures were higher too compared to the budget. So it's actually somewhat different. And then the last one, debt service, not a lot of change there. This is just showing our actual debt expense. The one change that you'll see is I added the OPEB trust to this page, which it really should be because it's part of our debt. We used to just leave it off as part of the Fund 25. Added that so you can see our full debt, so that's kind of where you'll see some of that change there. And I don't know if you remember from the audit, some of our OPEB offsets our benefits in the general fund, so I wanted to make sure that that was actually seen in our budget this time. That was kind of quick. Overall, good news from what we're seeing, and hopefully it is even better by audit time.
Jeff would like you to repeat all that, so.
Sure. So on the general fund,
A lot of numbers. Thank you, Dion, for your work and your staff's work. So I'll call for the vote to approve the revised budget. And it is approved. Next action item is approve the 2023-2024 school board meeting dates. I'll need a motion.
Motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. They are approved. Next item is approval of inclement weather calendar changes. I'll make a motion.
I'll second for discussion.
Any discussion?
Just share, after the interesting couple of weather weeks we've had, we have used our 5 e-learning days. Our admin team has met and we've talked about kind of what that means going forward and want to have a plan for if we, anticipating it's early in the winter, yeah, we could have additional days. So just to kind of lay out some of those days for board to consider and then for staff to kind of know what we're thinking and planning ahead for with those as far as makeup dates. At this point, we have had 1 snow day that needs to be made up. On our calendar, we had approved last year, February 20th would be the first date that's slated as a snow makeup day. So what I'm asking for approval for tonight is to take that February 20th and make that an instructional day. So we would have students and staff in class on February 20th. The other thing that I'm asking for approval of this evening is at the high school level in particular, having missed so much instructional time with late starts, early outs, in addition to the e-learning days and such we've had, they have asked for us to extend the end of Q2 a couple of days so they can finish the instructional pieces they need to do it at that level. So I'd like to, we would keep our work day on the January 20th where it's already scheduled. January 23rd, though, instead of coming back and starting the new quarter, they would continue the current quarter for 3 days and then switch midweek to the new quarter, which isn't ideal, but it gets us the extra days that the teachers are asking for instruction, like I say, primarily at the secondary level. And then the rest of the dates, the attachment, are just looking forward. If we have to take additional dates or move additional dates around, just thinking about what some of those might be and what that might look like should we need. But again, at this point, we've only used 1 that needs to be made up.
And it's only the 10th of January.
Only the 10th of January.
Jeremy, have you heard, has there been discussion on additional e-learning days being granted by the state?
Been a lot of conversation around that. It's in legislature. It's not like an MDE rule or something. So legislature would need to act to do it. So our fear is even if they act, will it be early enough to impact us for this school year? So at this point, there's a lot of advocacy that's going to take place. They're just getting started. So I'm not sure. We're just not going to count on it right now. But I would love to see some additional happen because I feel those days are valuable for us.
Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. That is approved. Next item is public forum. Is there anybody from the public that would like to approach the board?
Two heads shaking no.
Moving on, approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? Not, I'll call for the vote. That is approved. Our next item, any board reports or updates? forward to the next few days. Spend in the cities,
MSBA conference, yeah.
especially the food.
Facilities Committee did meet just yesterday, but there'll probably be an update at that at their next board meeting. Because now we've got board meetings just a few days apart.
Next item is our first review of policies 511 to 515. Were there any questions or concerns? Moving on. Second review of policies 501 to 510. Any questions there? And if there's nothing else, next week, remember, we are getting our pictures taken, not tonight, so remember to
Next week, so.
dress up. And I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.